Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. I'm your host, Gio McNee, and we are going to cover off a dual episode. So, following on from last week's episode about how to take your side hustle and making it your main income stream, we're going to follow on from that and cover off the next stage on what would happen and give you the top tips of what to do if you spot any of these two things and explore how to see where you currently are at. So if you haven't checked out last week's episode, you can do so after this video. Go check it out and give it a thumbs up, a like, and be sure to subscribe to the channel wherever you do so, wherever you're watching this, for more content like this. So in today's episode, we're going to find out the difference between working hard and working smart. How do you know the difference? What's the mindset shift? What do you need to have in your mind to make sure that you're not one or the other? And really, how do you spot it? And really, is there a big difference? What would be the difference if you were just working hard versus working smart? We're going to cover that off. Another thing is, the second thing is how you can move or leverage your business to become financially free. So what's really the big deal about becoming financially free? Well, if you've put all this effort and hard work into getting a business off the ground, starting something, taking that risk and gamble, the fruits of that reward is usually you want more freedom, you want more time, more financial freedom, more flexibility to do the things that you would enjoy. So the process of taking that risk has a payoff, and for a lot of people, freedom is that very thing. So what better to discuss than what would happen if you got to that stage, or at least at this point, we're planning for when that stage might happen. So stick around to the end of this episode where I will give you my top tips on what to do when you're spotting these things, whether you're planning to do this, whether you're just interested in it for now, or you could be right in the middle of it. If you're doing any of these things or planning to do them in the future, here's my top things to spot so you can identify them when they pop up, and also what you should aim at and what you should look for when you're setting off in this incredible journey to financial freedom and working smarter. So let's get started. What's the difference between working hard and working smart? So, one of the things when you get into a new industry, a new job, a new structure, a new business, whatever it is that you're doing that's moved you from what you've previously done and what you're looking to do now, is you're in an environment that generally you've came from an environment of working hard. So the harder you work, the better that you get. And it's a very well, time tested, theory that the harder you work, the better you get. There's the old adage, you only get out what you put in. And that can be true for a lot of things. There's lots of things like, the gym, endurance training, if you're looking to, dig a big hole, the more times you get your shovel out and keep smashing out the dirt, the bigger the hole's going to get, the quicker you're going to get done. However, there is a difference between working smart and working hard. So, like if you were digging a hole, you could be using a spoon to do it, which would be a lot of hard work. You could still do it, but it would just be making life difficult for yourself. Or you could use a digger to dig it out, and then you're behind the controls and you can do it in a few scoops. So that's the difference in a crude analogy, but the difference between working smart and working hard. Unfortunately, what I see a lot of is a lot of people grinding themselves into the ground, working hard. If we use the analogy of the digging, they're using a teaspoon to dig a massive hole when, there is tools right to the side of them that they could use that would be much, much better for the job. So what does that look like? Let's start with that. So if you're working hard, what's the sort of things that you're going to have? Is if you're working hard, you're spending lots and lots and lots of hours, but seeing no noticeable growth. One of the big things can be taking on too many tasks. Now, it's a classic trap for entrepreneurs that are starting out because when you begin, you came from a background most likely of doing one job very well, and that was your only job. And when you start a new business venture, you not only you usually have some experience in the new venture that you're doing, whether it be a business or some sort of service that you're providing. You have experience because you'll have some skill set there, but you'll also have lots of jobs that you've never done before. Things like administration, your books, content, designing websites, all these sorts of things the marketing piece. There's a huge amount of stuff that goes into running an operation, and you might have never dealt with any of them in the past. So you spend a lot of the time not only doing the thing that you're very good at, but also catching up on the things that you don't know anything about or have no experience in. And that means that you're doing low impact tasks that are taking lots of hours, that are not actually moving the needle in terms of your results, but you feel that you need to do them. And because there's this mentality of, just work hard and it'll take care of itself. That was true, in not so many years ago, where you did have to grind it through because everything was very manual. But in today's day and age, there's lots of tools that you can use to do the grunt work, if you like. And so, what are the other signs that you're working smart and working, instead of working hard instead of working smart? So you can be feeling extremely busy, that you've got lots of things on, but when you look at the statement at the end of the month, your customer growth or your bottom line or your revenue isn't growing. So it means that you're working harder, but the result isn't growing with the amount of effort that you put in. That's a classic problem because, normally if you're in the mindset of just work harder, your answer to it is to work even harder. So that doesn't allow you the opportunity to actually say, hey, look, is there anything else that I can be doing differently other than just, getting the head down and working hard? And it means that you can be stuck in this loop of just trying to grind out more and more hours and hope that it changes. So that can be an issue, and it leads into the next sign that we're going to go over, which is if you are starting to feel fatigue, if you're starting to feel burnout, if you're starting to feel drained, or you start to have thoughts like, I'm working hard, but this isn't working. Why is it not working? And this is the classic signs that you're working hard instead of smart. And it's trying to signal to you to take a look with your brain rather than grinding, hard work out with your brawn. So an example could be, you've done, an extra 10 hours of content, you've sent out lots of emails, you've made lots of calls, you've put in an extra, 25, 30 hours this week. You look at the results at the end of the week and there's nothing to show for it. And you think, hey, look, I'm doing everything that I think is right, but this doesn't seem to be working. That can be a sign that something's up. It can be a sign that your strategy is not dialed in. It can be a sign that the things that you're doing aren't having the impact that you would expect that they would. So if you're in that work hard mentality, it again encourages you to do more rather than to see why it's not ignited the way that you thought it would. So some of the mindset traps that you can fall into, which is again that we all have this internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, so we can talk ourselves into, hey, look, just do this or just do that, and justify our actions to a certain degree, and that's completely normal. But let's spot what some of them would be if you're working hard instead of smart. First one that comes to mind is more hours equals more success. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of hours that you spend doing something versus the amount of success that you have, meaning that it's linear. So meaning that if you wanted more success, the only answer is more hours. And that can be one of the thought processes that you can have. Another big thing, and I've been given a bit of advice to a business this week about this very, very thing. When you take on a business, it can be, it's like your baby. You want to nurture it, you want to look after it, you want to see it grow, you want to see it prosper, you want to see it have a great future. So it's very much like having, a child, and people get very attached and connected to it. So the thought of delegating some of that tasks or some of the important roles that are within a business, it can feel like they're giving away their child to someone else to trust, and that can be hard for a lot of business owners, especially if they've worked so diligently to get it to this point. And then probably the hidden thing, the last thing that's a mindset trap here that I think is one of the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous and it's the most hidden, believe it or not. Because whenever I speak to any business, I'm like, right, where do you want to go? And the big trap that they have where you're working hard and not smart is they don't have clarity in where they're going. They don't know why they're doing things, or they do things on a reactive basis. So nothing grows and develops because they're not creating new horizons, they've not got a goal, they've not got a destination that they'd like to get to. It's just this sort of swarming heap of activity that they just respond to it as it comes in and flows. So you need to know what you're doing. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know where you're going. You need to know what it looks like when you get there. You need to be able to imagine what you would see if you were, if you had the perfect business. You'd need to hear the things that you'd be hearing. You would need to feel how good it would feel if you were actually smashing it out of the park and this business was where you thought it could get to. And with that, you need to have a vision. You need to have a clear idea in your mind where you're going. So if you think of any of these things, then you might potentially be working hard and not smart. And so why does this happen? Well, it happens because you've not put any systems in place. You've not got any structure. So lack of structure and lack of systems or priorities means that you end up dealing with things and you treat everything as the same priority. So nothing actually gets done in the order that needs to get done. So the way that things are done in order makes a difference. Like, so for instance, if you were, if you were wanting to make a cake and you decided to keep all the ingredients in the packets and then put them in the tray and then stick them in the oven, you're not going to get a cake. There's an order in which you need to do things. You need to mix the cake mix up. You need to break the eggs. You need to take the make sure none of the shells fall into it. You need to swirl it all up. You need to get it to the right consistency. You need to add the right ingredients in the right way and the right measurements. So things need to be done in a particular way. And if you don't have priorities and you don't have a system in which you're operating towards, you end up, you can have all the right ingredients, but just not do them in the right order, and you're not going to get the cake at the end of it. It's not going to create the thing that you're looking for. So this is a sign that some structure and framework to work towards, where you have clear priorities and a clear objective, that can determine how you can take the action in the right ways. And one of the big things that can happen is that you're stuck in this worker mindset. So you just think work, where if you're a business owner, you need to do more than work. You need to, observe, analyze what's going on. You need to think of the problem. You need to think of the solution. You need to think about what that solution the outcome of that, what you want it to look like. So it's these things where you're like, hey, look, if this sounds like you, then it's showing you that working hard just isn't always the answer. Sometimes you've got to you've got to take the information that you have and think, hey, can I do this a little bit better? So, like, what does working smart mean? Working smart means that you're starting to leverage the tools that are available to you. So things like software systems, AI, using automations, things that can take a lot of the chunky sort of menial tasks that they're low impact but do need to be done. But you can get an automation that actually takes that process out of your hands. Things like automating payments, automating payment collection, automating accounts, automating your schedule, like your content. Having just a basic structure can make the world of difference. And this is the thing, when you set aside time to actually have your priorities in order. So the big thing that can make a shift is you actually start to shift your priority. And what that means is you have low impact tasks that don't really make that much of a difference to the bottom line. So things like, taking out the bins, is the paper loaded into the paper tray? Did you order Post-it notes? All that sort of stuff. Versus high impact things like, are you getting your name out there? Are you, have you got your scheduling created for your content? Are you making new connections in the industries that you want to do business in? Have you created an offer that can attract new clients and customers? And have you got all that sort of dialed in where you're leveraging your skills, you're using these templates to get a result? The other thing you can do is, when you have templates, like one of the things that we've just done in one of the businesses that I'm involved with, is you can create templates to leverage your expertise. And what that does is it automates the process. If someone has got a question, you can then automate that answer, because the template will know that, hey, look, this is the answer that needs to be given here. Like, I'll give you an example. So say, for instance, someone says, how do you work out the percentage of, mortgage availability in a buy-to-let, and I would say, well, the answer is based on current buy-to-let lending values, and that currently today is 75%. So if you were to put that question and the template could answer it, it means that you're not dealing with those types of things. Another instance might be, a guest puts in a message and says, hey, look, is there parking at your property? And then the system can say, hey, here's the property address. What have you got in there? Yes, parking's located, in the two car bays at the front of the property. Here's the numbers of the bays, so you can use either of them. That's a system that you can put in place. And what it means is you're not spending hours and hours and hours on tasks that you don't really need to. And you can actually start to free and unshackle yourself. So that's a good sign that you're probably working quite smart. And when you start to look at things that streamline your process, the idea is you're becoming more efficient. And when you become more efficient, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself the room to take workload off you, to become more creative, to make those connections, to expand your business, which is ultimately the thing that actually makes the difference to growth. So what's the signs? What would be the signs if you did start to use some of these? Well, the signs would be that you would notice that you're not working that much harder and that your business growth is improving. So meaning the effort hasn't dramatically increased. It's remained the same, or could be slightly less, could be slightly more, but you're getting an outsized return on that system and framework that you've put in place. So like an example would be you systemize your offer, you put a really good offer out there, you got all the back end automated, and it runs the whole, putting an offer out there, someone accepting it, collecting payment, that payment then being allocated, and then whatever service that you're delivering is sent to your client. Then if you automate that process, then what you're doing is you are allowing yourself the freedom to that process to take care of itself, whilst also you can see the jump in your business, meaning you don't need to be everywhere at all times, all places at once. It means that is taking care of itself without you needing to be there. So that's a really, really that's a sign that you're working smart. Another thing that you're doing is you have now time on your hands to actually work out what's the next steps. So you can start to work out a strategy, and you can start to think about growth, and you can start to get very, very creative. And you're not spending your time just executing on tasks, because in this day and age, it's never been easier to actually get results from automation. It's never, ever been easier. It's never been as straightforward as it is now. So you can start to really unshackle yourself and spread your wings and start to feel a good result. Another thing you'll probably notice is you'll feel more rejuvenated, because you have more energy. You have an upward tick in energy because you're not spending your time in the weeds. You're not spending your time stuck with the low tasks that are just not driving the results. They're not important, but they're nice to get done. You're not dealing with them, so you can actually work on the high impact results that make a difference. You can hit those things that are number one for you. And that's where you're going to get growth. So what strategies would I use for working smart to work hard? But everybody's heard of the rule, the 80-20% rule. So 20% of the work gets you 80% of the results. So what you want to identify, first of all, is the strategy should be whatever it is that you're doing. Now, this applies in life. This isn't just restricted to business. There'll be things that make up significant results to you, and only 20% of the things that you do are making up those 80%. So identify what they are. That's the first thing. Identify what they are, and then start to structure that you give top priority to this 20% of things that get you 80% of the result. That's a straightforward, practical strategy to use. So find the stuff that moves the needle the most and give that your attention first. And that way you're getting maximum growth. Because the classic with any business is, if you can grow and financially get in a position where you have a lot of money coming in, you're doing well financially, but you need some tasks picked up, put yourself in the position where you can gain that capital, you can gain the results. And that means that what happens is, when you've got enough cash there or enough capital there, you can bring in staff, or you can buy systems, you can buy more improved softwares, higher tiers, you can get expert advice on how you can then become even more efficient. No one knows what it's like better than myself when you start out and you it's a lonely venture and you work hard and you don't have all the experience that that you really feel that you need, but then actually finding that you can get some relief by working on the things that make a difference. So the 80%, 20% rule is a great strategy to use. The second thing that I would do is habit stack. So take things that are similar and put them together. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was, when I think back to when I was learning new information, I would rather than read, because reading a book could be quite, you couldn't read a book when you were driving, or you couldn't read a book when you were in the gym. There's a lot of places you couldn't read a book, but there was a lot of knowledge and wisdom in books that you may want to take in. So I bought Audible, and they've got the credits that you can get for Audible, and started listening to audiobooks. And I would be able to listen to those audiobooks about things that I could improve, things that I could learn, things that I could apply. And I would listen to them while I was in the gym, or listen to them while I was in the car. And what I was doing was I was stacking the thing that I needed to do, which was physical training, and the thing that I wanted to do, which was learn about, something that was going to improve me, or something that was going to improve my results. So there's an idea of habit stacking. You can do that with many things, where you are taking the things that you have got in your day-to-day life and then stack them up with something else. That's working smart, meaning that you're getting a couple of things done in a slot that you previously would have had for just that one single thing. That's a good way to really start to get a lot crammed into your day. People often say, I don't know how you fit it in. Well, habit stacking is one of those ways. Made famous, by the way, of James Clear, wrote a book called Atomic Habits. It's about 3 hours on Audible to listen to. The book's short, precise, and punchy. He's written a lot of the principles that weren't actually his own, that have been known for the ages of time. But he has a very, very good spin on it, and a really, really good book. And I would urge you, if you haven't read it, go and give it a read. And my last strategy on how to work smart is start to invest in learning. So learn. I mean, I can't tell you how many hundreds of thousands of pounds that I've spent over the years improving my learning ability. If you look at my knowledge base has been a collection of books, courses, mentorships. It's been seminars. It's been putting in the hours, the real time to do the learning, the writing notes, the listening to Audible books, paying attention, visiting people that are experts in their field and learning what I can from them. That hundreds of thousands of pounds of expense has been paid back, infinitely, in wisdom and knowledge and experience and profound results financially and mentally from improving yourself. So put aside some time to actually learn. And what happens if you're finding that time to learn and you're making that effort to actually use that time wisely to learn? It's another great sign that you're working smart instead of hard. And the final thought is mindset shifting from, you don't need, working smart isn't working lazy. Working smart is working, you can work just as hard, but working more smartly with the same effort level is going to double your results. It's going to, at least. So don't just do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity. If you can take the effort level of how hard you're willing to work, and then engage your brain to find out the smartest way to possibly deploy that effort, that's where you're going to get incredible results. So it's not one or the other. It's maximize one whilst maximizing the other. So, okay, rolling on from working smart and working hard, what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is freedom. So what everyone looks for is freedom, becoming master of your own destiny. You're able to decide how you want to spend your time, who you want to spend your time with, and you're not bound by any financial constraints. Sounds pretty good. So how do you get there? Well, one of the things that you want to do is you want to connect the dots between a goal, which is your vision. So what do you want your life to look like in terms of, if you could have anything, what would it be? That's the first dot. The second dot is working smartly to get there as quickly as possible. And the third one is financial freedom. And what is financial freedom? Well, financial freedom can mean a lot to different people, but the general consensus, financial freedom is where you have multiple income streams that are more than your expenses, that continue to come in, and you are not exchanging time for money. So you would generally have income streams that don't rely on you putting in a specific number of hours to obtain that revenue stream. And what does that look like? So how would you know? Well, one of the things that you could be doing is what you're currently doing, whether it be a service business, self-employed, whether it be, that you're a super high flyer in a corporate position, is whatever you're doing is making enough profit to cover it off your expenses, plus you've got a little left over. And depending on how much of that you've got left over, you could then start to reinvest for the future. One of the things that I did was I sacrificed yesterday's results or yesterday's enjoyment to have today's results. So what does that mean in real terms? It means that I gave up the opportunity to do things that I would have liked to have done in the past because I was building for the future, meaning that I worked the most diligently I could to shrink down the time that it took for me to get the life that I wanted, meaning that I sacrificed things that I would have liked to have done, things that I'd have liked to have buy, places I'd have liked to have went to give me the maximum amount left over to invest in the future. And that was a cornerstone to my own results. So one of the things that you want to have, as I mentioned, was multiple income streams. It can be from investments, it could be your business revenue, it could be passive income from things like real estate, property, things of that nature. And, what do you get when you get financial freedom? You've got choice to travel, see the world, you've got you're able to spend time with your family. You're basically able to take on new ventures. I mean, one of the things that you'll find is that people that are successful in the world of, business and finance, they thrive on it. Like, it's not a case of, hey, you use this to get to a certain point and then you check out. It's when you get into the world of business and investments, it's fun. It's actually good fun, and you enjoy the process of getting good results, so you want to get more of them. And working smart combined with working hard, combined with a vision is the trifecta. That is the ultimate, because what you do is you take the talent and skill that you've got, which is working smart, and then you take your effort, grittiness and determination, which is working hard, and then you combine it and point it towards something you want, which is in the future, which is financial freedom. So how would you use, what would be how would you smartly work towards financial freedom? Well, one of the first things you can do is reinvest the money that you've currently got, or the money that you're currently generating. So rather than blowing it on, new toys, new flash things, new holidays, take that money and put it into things that will, could potentially make you money in the future. You can speculate on things like investments, stocks, bonds, real estate, a new business, expanding your current business, merging with other businesses. There's many things that you can do, but what you're doing is, regardless of which one you pick, you believe that it's a better use of the money that you have to expand your future result by making this move today. That's a good sign of you working smartly to then getting yourself closer to financial freedom. So another one's like passive income. Passive income is a good one where you could build a product that you can sell over and over again. So in the world today in information, you could build, say you've got a skill or a talent, you have a course or a product that you could sell. You record it once and then people can buy it over and over and over and over and over again. And that effectively is making you money without you needing to be there all of the time. So that's a great way of building a passive income. Now, there's a marketing piece to that, there's a sales piece to that, and there's obviously delivering the content piece. That's a great way of building passive income. Traditionally, what I did was I built a property portfolio, which was let me go and buy properties that generate income that then can build up a pot. I can then go and buy more properties as that pot builds up. And at some point, you have enough properties that the income it's generating is covering way more than your expenses. And these properties will generate you revenue without you're not exchanging time for money. You've bought the asset, and the asset it generates the revenue. And it's a very, very, very proven way to get financially free. Lots of people have used it very successfully, and I'd put myself in that category as the initial thing that got me from being in the rat race, if you like, to financial freedom. So if it sounds like you, hey, if you're tech savvy, if you've got a cool service to sell, if you've got something you can build, go for the digital route. And if you want to go old school and you want bricks and mortars, then it's a fabulous way to do it. And believe it or not, it's not as hard as you think, despite what some people might say. So create passive income is a really good way to work smartly towards financial freedom. Another thing that you could do is, a lot of people probably would, balk at this kind of thing, but strategize what you're doing. Like, where are you wasting money? Where are you hemorrhaging cash? Cut out all the things that you don't need. Tighten up your expenses, and then what happens is it expands your available income that you can then go and reinvest. All the people that I know that have been very successful in property always reinvest it. And a lot of the times they're reinvesting in other properties before they invest in their own home, because their own home isn't going to generate revenue. This portfolio building process does. And before they know it, very quickly, the sacrifice that they made by investing in other properties rather than, putting in the big swanky kitchen in their own house, now they're in a position where they can buy anything that they want because they've put the time in working smartly to build something that has passive income. And that's a great way to get to financial freedom. I've got a couple of investors just now. Their industries are slowing up dramatically. And they've said, hey, look, we know the type of investments that you do. We want to go full tilt into them so that we can then pivot from the current industry that they're in to the property industry. That's just a much, much more stable method than the industry that they're currently in. And it just shows the skills and expertise that these guys have got to be able to say, hey, look, I'm smartly seeing the issue and we're going to make the move. So don't be afraid to mix it up. Don't be afraid to take the leap, because there's many people doing extremely well and it's not as hard or as difficult as you may think. So all it takes is a bit of effort. You definitely need a vision. You need to know where you're going and why. And remember, the ultimate goal here is financial freedom. Remember, financial freedom isn't just about money. It's what it gives you. The mindset shift that you want is you want more freedom. You want more choice. You want more ability to control how your life is, the demands of your life. And if you can get yourself to an economic position where you're generating very good money, and it doesn't require you to be there all of the time like it would be in a job, then what it means is you have much more flexibility to do the things you want, much more flexibility to visit the places you like. Who wouldn't want that? Travel the world, not worry about expenses. You don't need to be there to make money. You can make money while you sleep. It is exotically fabulous sounding. And you know what? It's real and it's true. Like, so if you're out there and you're skeptical, and like, I'd get it. I think a healthy dose of skepticism is good. Trust me, it can be done. So tie that in with working smart. Have a goal, work towards the goal, and then aim for financial freedom. You will not be disappointed. So here's my top steps on what to do is have a plan of what you would like. Number one, how do you know where you're going if you don't have a plan, you don't have a destination? What would the ultimate life look like? If you don't know how to do that, have a visualization course that will teach that. 8 simple, straightforward videos. They get right to the point. They go into the science. They go into the data. They go into how it's worked. They go into how big a shift it makes. It will tell you what sports people have been able to achieve using this, what business people that have been able to achieve using this, even people that have been sick have been able to use this to improve and heal themselves. So it is powerful beyond belief. Go check that out. It'll be in the show notes. I urge you, if you've struggled to create a goal, this is what you've been looking for. And you can get involved in that now. It is literally at your fingertips. So go check that out. And that's why it works. It works because you've got a plan. We're drawn to things that we focus on. And whatever you focus on, you get more of. So if you focus on the right things, you're going to be drawn to it. What it will cost you, it will cost you your time, it will cost you your focus, and it will cost you your powerful and positive energy. And if you're prepared to exchange that, then the path to my financial freedom has begun for you. Go check out that video series. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. So in wrapping up, I hope you have enjoyed the difference between working hard and working smart, the signs and what you can do, and what you can do to start to see if you're working smart and hard, and how you can change from just working hard to working hard and smart. And then also following on from that, if you did want to work towards financial freedom, use these skills that you've mastered: the habit stacking, the having the goal, the sacrificing a little bit of today for tomorrow, the working out the planning, And then once you start to see the results, you're off to the races. You're going to thrive. You're going to get better and better results. You're going to improve at the way that you're doing it. And you're going to feel really, really good because it is very enjoyable. And the best of all, you're not stuck on that grind, that workaholic mentality, the working for, the sake of working, the working for just the sake of seeing busy. There's so many structures and strategies out there combined with automation that's available. It has never been easy. It has never been easier than this to get financially free and to work smartly. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I'll be back next week for the next installment in our series where I go into even more tips and tricks about how to get you closer to the life that you want. And I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode and tune in, follow for more, hit the subscribe button wherever you're watching this, put the notifications on. And if you've got anything you'd like me to cover off and add on to the back of this series, drop it in the comments below. But from me this week, that's a wrap.